Hey there, welcome to episode 97 of the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program. I am your host, Dan Hugo. Today we are recording on Friday, January 3rd, 2025. Happy New Year. It's been an interesting start for those of us experiencing the new year, and I guess for better or worse, Las Vegas did not have quite the bad start. It's unfortunate what happened in New Orleans. Hopefully, I'll get through that. Hopefully we don't see more of that with CES coming up next week. We'll see what Vegas does. And hopefully if you're listening to this in the future, or if this today is in your past, hopefully there was no negativity around what is probably still one of, if not the largest trade shows here in Vegas. The Consumer Electronics Show 2025 starts on January 7th. And we should probably talk about what our plans are as entrepreneurs, you and me, in this entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem, the greater Vegas area. What are we doing? What is going on? And who is driving? Thus, today's topic, Initiative 2025. Yeah, it's a play on the other thing, but hopefully a little bit more positive and a little bit more focused on the greater Vegas area and entrepreneurialism and innovation and all kinds of good things. In case you're new to this program, the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program is named through inspiration for the Cafe Centro, spelled with two F's, just like Cafe Genius. It was where startups start in the San Francisco Bay Area in Central. In South Park. I'm from New Jersey, so Central Park was another thing. South Park, which was very near still is near the ballpark, and Cafe Centro is a little unassuming coffee shop. It's where, among others, Jack Dorsey was working on Twitter before it became Twitter. Not that I'm a huge Twitter fan, but that's probably one of the higher profile stories. Cafe Centro, I've been there several times. It's a nice little spot, definitely a cool spot to hang out with the park right there and so on. Sadly, Cafe Centro closed down a little over a year ago. There should be a Cafe Centro in the greater Vegas area, something to think about. And I've actually done an episode about this previously. Genius, as in the Genius Lunch, which we used to have back in the Downtown Project days. I was never a formal part of the Downtown Project, but as an outside observer, we used to all grab a lunch now and then, talk about who was working on what was going on, this and that. A Genius Lunch. And finally, impresarios are people that do things, that make things happen. Cafe Genius Impresarios, that's what this audio program is. Someday we'll have guests again. Hopefully that will be a part of Initiative 2025 as well. In the meantime, hopefully wherever you have found this audio program, you're able to locate the episode description. Within that, you will find the summary of today's show, which I will read, and usually some links. I was thinking, okay, first of all, I've linked to very relevant information over the last year. Some of the things we'll talk about today are sort of a past as prologue, so references abound in the past. You can find them wherever you found this audio program. You'll find previous episodes as well, hopefully. So I didn't want to load you up with a bunch of links. So the only two links are the usual shameless self-promotion. If you are new to the program, these are no obligation to pay money, although you can if you want to, links, which I will get to. So without further ado, let's get started. This episode may be a little bit long. It's probably over 30 minutes. We'll see. Many of my episodes have been long, so I'm really just telling you things might be back to normal in the new year. So let's get it started. The summary of today's episode is this. A new year has arrived with quite a wake-up call to go with it, with Vegas getting a small taste of the chaos. Again, very unfortunate. I will leave it to you to track that news in the present or looking to the past, sometime later. In the meantime, let us consolidate a few things we've brought up over the last year or so and spell out a plan for our ecosystem this year. A plan that I will probably be driving loudly. Hopefully I'll have some colleagues, some collaborators, some corroborators. Let's see what happens. The first link, shameless self-promotion, By buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo, you can buy Dan a coffee if you really want to. But more importantly, the profile page there is a freeform link tree of sorts. There are links to all of my audio programs. I think I have a link to the new one coming out soon. So that'll bring it up to 5. As well, at the top of the profile page, so when you first land at the Dan Hugo profile page, buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo, right at the top under where it says I'm whatever my title is this week, a link to the posts section. I've been posting a micro episode called Buy Me an Update. It's a play on the name Buy Me a Coffee. It's only available on Buy Me a Coffee. It's about a 4 or 5 minute micro episode running over last week's episodes and the upcoming stuff. As there are announcements or other items that would be interesting across the audio programs or not necessarily related to the audio programs or other things, it's a nice way to start the week. I've been posting on Monday morning, so you can check that out there. Also, the Ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/DanHugo. I know it's pronounced coffee, but to differentiate, Ko-fi, ko-fi.com/DanHugo. I post textual updates there. Ko-fi.com does enable linking to audio, but does not enable linking to Buy Me a Coffee audio posts. Competition is what it is. So you can check out either of those. I've been posting there more frequently, thanks to the micro updates, the micro episodes, and the micro updates. So check it out. No obligation to spend money. If you do want to contribute to the cause, all of my projects are powered by coffee, among other things. All proceeds through either of these platforms do go towards coffee or coffee accessories. I'll probably talk about it if it happens. And now, on with the show. Obviously, we can't talk about our economic ecosystem. We can't talk about our entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem without talking about the fun economy. The fun economy and economic diversity, in fact. So the fun economy, as we've discussed many times, I think its trademark still pending from UNLV Office of Economic Development. Last time I checked, it's in review. I think it was sent back to UNLV for their comment or to answer a question or something, and it's been sitting. So we'll see about this fun economy trademark. It is important to the greater Vegas area, the fun economy, though during the pandemic and lockdowns. Is it locks down or lockdowns? I think it's lockdowns. And a drastic reduction in the tourism and maximal use of the fun economy in tourism. And so that is, the streets were empty. The stores were empty. The restaurants were having their own issues and were largely empty. So we weren't using the fun economy. We all learned a little bit more about relying too much on one thing, such as this. So over-reliance on tourism, essentially. Plans at the state level on down are aimed at diversifying the economy to keep the overall economy safe from such disruption. So if there is another pandemic or some other, when you think about it, any economic downturn, so the pandemic was an economic downturn plus you're not allowed to go outside. One may have come before the other, but bottom line, if an economic downturn is subtractive to a fun economy, that is, there's not a lot of excess or disposable income to spend on fun, you may see a ripple effect with smaller conventions, fewer trade shows, moving locations, seeking better deals, and so on. So there's a cascading effect, always possible. So economic diversity will aim to make an economy that is resilient in the face of downturn, slowdown, etc. This does not necessarily help those who enable the fun economy, but this is how the world works. Rugged individualism must still be the last and best tool in one's toolbox to keep sharp. You can keep the tool sharp, or you can keep yourself sharp with the tool. It depends on how you want to look at that. But rugged individualism, Teddy Roosevelt to the rescue. Now there are many plans, many negotiations, maybe, many notions, many claims that the greater Vegas area will be an innovation hub, the next Silicon Valley, Hollywood 2.0, the next biotech research site. And of course, we still have remnants of the atomic research days and the test site. By the way, those are good for nuclear medicine, so that's actually something to think about. And our fun economy is actually growing with more professional sports, more residences in the entertainment space, more adult-oriented and family-oriented fun options, and more resort rooms and ways to spend money and take in Vegas. So the fun economy is not going away. We just keep adding stuff. It's almost like, is there nothing Vegas can't do? Well, I'm going to guess there is. I think I just named a few of them. Can we have it all? And by the way, when I say things like that, I'm being realistic. Can you come to the Vegas area and launch a media production company and think of yourselves as part of yourselves, as part of Hollywood 2.0? Sure. Will you change the way the city functions and change the economic underpinnings of the greater Vegas area? That's a little bit more of a hill to climb. So, as I often tell people, is Vegas going to be the next Silicon Valley? Well, we do have some tech startups. We have some possibilities. But when you go to Silicon Valley, where I did spend about 14 years, I think, through the dot-com bubble and all that, if you go to Silicon Valley, you will find gambling, gaming. You will find entertainers. You will find trade shows. You will find a very large diversity of food, restaurants, a lot of small business restaurant owners, very, very ethnically diverse region. You'll find multiple counties, 5, 6 counties all around the Bay that are encouraging, enabling small business, and you'll find a thriving housing market with very expensive rents. So what's to prevent Silicon Valley from being the next Las Vegas when you think about it? So I wouldn't rush to trying to be some other place. We already are what we are. We can make ourselves a better version of that. You've heard me talk about this many times. So can we have it all? The problems are several with this grand plan to be all things in all verticals. Vertical is, tech and medical and entertainment, movie production. We already have entertainment, right? You just come here, live entertainment, and some of it's streams and so on, and anything's possible. So there are 2 choices, I think, I will propose here. Either be the remote or virtual innovation destination that this area already is for the fun economy, or encourage people with the skill sets needed, not the skill sets to relocate. They don't need particular skills to relocate, but if they have the skill sets that are needed to fill these verticals, to build our talent pool, move to the greater Vegas area. Come on down. So in the case of the former, resources in place, we need them to enable innovation of various kinds, coupled with the resources we already have for visitors, including rooms, activities, meeting spaces, and so on. This would enable an innovation destination that makes use of our fun economy platform rather than placing it at risk. So if you invite, say, 180,000 people to the greater Vegas area next week from January 7th through 10th, 2025, and say, hey, if you're in the consumer electronics business, if you're in that vertical, come on down. We have like the biggest trade show in America. There are bigger trade shows in Vegas, in Europe, I should say. But we'll get there someday. We'll be the biggest and the best. Come on down to Vegas, hang out, meet people, do some networking, ideate, show off your innovation. By the way, Eureka Park is the coolest part of CES, my opinion. And then go back home. You do not need to move to the greater Vegas area to conduct this business and to enjoy and benefit from these interactions. You come here, you do your thing, and you leave. We are a city built for exactly that. And the week after CES, there will be something else going on. And if you look at the LVCVA, the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, numbers, statistics on visitation, tourism, reason for visiting, how many people come here for trade shows and what, the week over week numbers, year over year, et cetera, obviously they trend based on pandemics or other such things, economic considerations. But if you look and you compare, you will see that the CES does not bring an additional 180,000 people. It just it changes the demographic of the weekly flow through the area. There'll be a little bit more of a leaning towards consumer electronics than normal. But in general, we are built for having this large influx of people basically on a weekly basis, right? Weekends are people coming to Vegas to do this or that. Through the week, there'll be trade shows and conventions. The Convention and Visitors Authority covers that kinds of stuff. So we can do that. We can have people come here, do their thing, and leave. And if we have a little bit more in the way of resources on the ground, I always told people when I first moved here, hey, what would it take for us to be the next Silicon Valley? And I would say, well, you need Stanford and a time machine, of course. But you cannot do certain things here that you can do in Silicon Valley. You could go down the street. I've done it literally. Go down the street and get FCC certified on your technology, right? You go and you sit in a room, a big giant room with an antenna, and they measure your signals as they are coming off of your electronic device. Make sure you're not causing interference and so on. So you can get your FCC certification on signals and interference and so on. This was important when we were making faster and faster computers, for example. You can go have prototype motherboards made. You can go have chips turned really quickly. Chips and Technologies used to do quick turn chips. Altera and Xilinx, both based in the Bay Area, whoever owns them now, and so on. So the resources you need to pursue the Silicon Valley stuff that was going on, mostly aimed at hardware and later software. Making silicon, making chips, making semiconductors, making motherboards, making circuit boards, making interconnects, doing thermal analysis, doing FCC certification. All these things are available in the Bay Area. So you can just go literally down the street. So we have none of those things. So some construction needs to take place. And this is where the tech park at UNLV might be interesting, because academia has the sort of long-term vision and can make a case for building resources that might not be of industrial scale. They may not be huge, but they are present. So they can be time shared with those visiting the area, our innovation destination, to have meetings with what would otherwise be a geographically diverse workforce. The age of the remote worker, unless they're being forced to RTO, the remote worker might be anywhere. Why not have them meet up in Vegas once a week? No, for a week once a month, for a week once a quarter, for 2 weeks once a year, whatever it is, whatever the case may be. And I always tell people, when I worked at Intel, the Intel Sales and Marketing Conference would take place at where was it? Was that the Venetian? I think it was at the Venetian. And Intel always has rooms booked at the Venetian and the Palazzo. If you're an executive, you get a Palazzo, and the working people get the Venetian. And they would have all their Intel sales and marketing people come in from around the world and meet up in Vegas for a week, do some private shows, basically a private conference, right? And then go back. You don't need to move to Vegas to do these things. So it worked out nicely. This could happen at scale. If there's one thing Vegas has built for, it is people visiting and then leaving. And then come back and see us. In the case of the latter, that is having people relocate to the greater Vegas area in pursuit of their entrepreneurial endeavors or to work for someone, working for a startup. Relocating to the Vegas area to grow the talent pool would bring with it the very real likelihood of gentrification. I don't think this is even a doubt. With cost of living, including rents and housing prices, going up more. As well, in the early stages of an attempt at reshaping the fun economy into a fun innovation hub, there is a risk that some of the early movers, the people that actually relocate here, will move again. They may say, this isn't really working for me. The educational infrastructure here is a little bit tricky. Oh, just go to private school. They may move away from Vegas. So relying on imported talent without a strong and capable base, which will take time, right? So Silicon Valley had that, and I've done an episode previously, I believe it was 85, where we talked about the history of Silicon Valley did not start in 2008. It started a little over 100 years ago. The culture of innovation, the population had the mindset, people on the ground, educational resources, general interest. So if people come here looking for something and they find that it's not quite here, they can just leave. Relying on imported talent without a strong and capable base, as I was saying, which does take time, right? Our educational resources need to be up to the task. So do the people living here. It would mean convincing high value and so high priced technical talent to stick around. Who pays for that? I refer you to the history of Austin, which I've talked about in a previous episode, which basically said, hey, let's become an innovation hub. Let's invite tech companies to move here. And as I discussed when I went over the book that I was doing a book report on of sorts, when you gentrify an area, the culture and the character of the area will change. And so if you move to Vegas because, oh, look at all the stuff Vegas is, soon it will be, do you remember all the stuff Vegas was? Because the people moving in will be gentrifying the region. Soon it will be difficult for people who already live here to continue living here. And this happened during the pandemic. People were priced out when rents went up 25 to 40% in some regions. So what do you actually end up with? Hopefully we don't find out too soon. My view, top-down, is not ideal. I've referred a few times in previous episodes to the way Formula One racing has been handled here in the Greater Vegas area, twice now, about the track construction, the alterations to the strip for the event, and how these changes had real and negative impact on some small business and on tourism. By the way, you don't always hear about those things. You gotta hunt down articles about these things, because mostly the headlines that get the attention are about the success of the event. Oh, it was wonderful. You have to actually look for the people that said, wait a minute, I got kind of screwed over. My business suffered a lot. And who knows how many people we didn't hear from that were in a similar boat. The hype is about the winners. Usually the larger resorts and the business interests that get all the attention. Formula One, of course, they're very excited to be in Vegas, and whatever else the Clark County Commission and the LVCVA want to highlight. Why point to negatives? They are in the business of talking up Vegas, of promoting the region for business and for tourism and so on. So, honesty, marketing, maybe not two sides of the same coin. There are various agencies and interests in the Greater Vegas area with plans that will drive and benefit a few other interests. They might make some headlines and might also find some success according to some definition of success. So, what does success mean at the cost of someone else's, perhaps? If F1 is a model, we would all want to be aware, we should all be paying attention to how these various high-profile endeavors, I wrote provide. I always say, who does my notes? Profile. One-handed typing. How these various high-profile endeavors play out and who actually ends up winning. And, this being Vegas, who has to lose to get there. In other words, as I often tell people, they don't build these big giant buildings on the strip by handing out money to people gaming, right? So some fraction of them the money has to go to the house, and the odds do favor the house. And if you come to Vegas not knowing that, well, step right this way. With the track record, sorry about that, we are seeing just in the last 2 to 3 years, the track record being inspired by Formula One racing, of course. I did not prepare this stand-up routine effectively. So we're seeing just in the last 2 to 3 years, this economic diversity plan, which is, inspired by the pandemic, but of course should have been in mind previously. Economic diversity is always important to be resilient in the face of changes in circumstance at city scale. One must wonder if a top-down approach that highlights and pays the most attention to celebrity and those who have found financial or similar success elsewhere, Silicon Valley, for example, and so they get the press and the partnerships and the pandering. I've seen this countless times, and I've talked about it previously. Only in Vegas does the guy who moved to Vegas, to Summerlin, I think, from San Francisco because he had a burglary. He upped and moved to Vegas and now has $1,000 per ticket gatherings at his home to meet with other entrepreneurs who come to Vegas. They're not already here in most cases, from what I understand. I'm alleging this. And they talk about opportunities in Vegas for their developers to move here, gentrify. What can we extract from this area and then move on to the next place? So I'm not hearing, when I hear discussions like that, and I did not attend the event, so I can only guess, but when I look at who attended, if that information is available, and what the things people are talking about are, they're not always talking about long-term investment, exit, an exit when you're in a startup. An exit could mean selling your company, but it might also be geographically exiting to find places that are more in tune with the startup community, with the tech sector that the particular startup happens to be in, and so on. So I think if the top-down folks are really looking at the outcomes, if their KPIs, their key performance indicators, do not align with those of the people who are here, trying to be entrepreneurial, trying to operate small business, what then? And if they're not really listening to you because, you're a small business owner, we're really looking up, not down, then what? Yes, I'm cynical. Bottom up for the win. The exciting world of entrepreneurial innovation and our ecosystem in which this might take place is not not to be built by others. It is not found in the number of likes and shares on a LinkedIn post. It is not about getting a plug from a Wahlberg or a Horowitz, but about individuals who want to do something and want to take a risk to do it. That's the entrepreneurial spirit. That's how innovation happens. Maybe they are already here. Maybe they moved to Vegas for whatever reason, with little fanfare and even less attention, yet these are the people who will make a difference. Guess what? If you have enough money to move to Vegas and move the needle, as the saying goes, you also have enough money to move somewhere else or to have multiple bets, right? If you are financially successful and you think, I'm going to put all my chips on red, move to Vegas and see what happens, something tells me you are not inspiration. Maybe you are. I don't know. Odds are you're going to have a few chips on a couple of different numbers, that is, different places. You're not going to put all of your chips down in Vegas. It is important to remember that being entrepreneurial does not mean tech sector, nor must you be making movies, nor working in biotech. You know what? Sometimes entrepreneurs go over those beaten paths and go around. What did I mean there? They go over those beaten paths. They don't stay on them. And so something unexpected might happen. It may be, in fact, it will be more valuable to invite those who think outside the box, off the beaten path, to be a part of ongoing conversation about this ecosystem. Hey, you moved to Vegas with your startup idea, or you moved to Vegas and then came up with a startup idea. What do you think is missing? What roadblocks are you having to climb over instead of stepping gently over? Or where do you think claims about the value proposition are not meeting with reality? And we saw this with the Downtown Project days. The Downtown Project was a lift. That was a big lift. And so there's always going to be, when you're doing something interesting like that, there are going to be places where things could be better. And there's always an opportunity to learn from those things. So next time you don't do the same things over and over again. So that's has been on the list for too long to do a retrospective on the Downtown Project. The question is whether we'll get participation. A lot of people have bad feelings. A lot of people are apathetic. A lot of people just don't want to think about the past. They want to look forward. Guess what happens to people who don't consider the past when they move forward? They may end up seeing the past again. Those of us on the ground making things happen, or trying to, may not be granted the power to make changes directly, but we should be heard. We should be invited to participate, and we should be able to drive real thinking if the greater Vegas area is to be greater. So initiatives and projects, Initiative 2025, that is, we use the term initiative in the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, of which I'm the managing director, of course, to encapsulate several component projects under one umbrella, if you will. With our Open Transit Initiative, for example, our My Muni Initiative, and so on. Each of those has different pieces and parts. We can be a bit more clear about this by using this different term. So you got your initiative, and then it is made up of component projects. And each of those projects needs work, right? Needs effort. And this is what we have here with Initiative 2025. So it has under it several projects or component projects. It will have a few moving parts, and we need to get started with our new calendar before us. I have spoken about some of these previously, so here's a quick summary. And we'll talk about these again in the future, of course, and especially if we can get people to buy into this notion of bottom-up entrepreneurs telling it like it is. Hey, guess what? If you work for the government or you work for an NGO, you're not necessarily an entrepreneur. You may have been, or you may be an entrepreneur in addition to. But if you got a day job working for the government and the government is trying to tell you how to do things, give that a pause. The next cohort of the Genius Roundtable, this time likely to be structured very differently and probably not as a single cohort, but it's still, it's going to be the second try at collecting insights from those of us on the ground doing cool things. And if you're doing the cool things and you want to be sitting at the Genius Roundtable to talk about what would make doing the cool things easier, stay tuned. We were going to aim for late January, but that's really quick. And so probably get started February 2025. The next cohort, it's what happens when I just read what I've put in front of myself. Real public engagement. Social media is interesting and it's great and it changes the world and it gets presidents elected and so on. But you compete with the many, many good and talented content creators in the Vegas area talking restaurants and bars and tourism and entertainment. That is the audience. I always tell people there are 40 million people visiting Vegas every year. They're really here for the fun economy in one way or another. The 2.5, 2.3, 2.5, 2.4 million people who live in Clark County, they live here. So it's interesting to know what the latest restaurant opening and so on. But, if you're visiting Vegas as a tourist, you may, especially if you come here frequently, you may be more interested in taking in the cool new stuff, the food, the drink, the fun, the entertainment, and so on, all the fun economy trappings. So getting noticed can be tricky, and all that fun means nobody knows about your startup effort. Let's change that. So let's make it a little bit easier to find entrepreneurialism, innovation, and the moving parts of our ecosystem. Data-driven information, including an asset map and ecosystem impact by decisions like Formula One, we can actually interact with people on the ground on an ongoing basis, for example, to measure positive and negative impact beyond the radius of the Genius Roundtable, because it's a round table. See what I did there? And this information is public, not overshadowed by crime and politics and fun economy drama. So are they building the baseball stadium? Who knows? Let's make that front page news and forget about this person working on a cool startup that's going to change the way people drink water or whatever the case may be. So those projects often don't get the attention. Don't even get me started on students achieving things in challenges, hackathons, etc. There's almost no attention paid to achievement if it isn't somebody winning a jackpot. Jackpot winners, front page. Some high school students winning a national prize for energy efficiency or something. They'll get the 2-minute video on in the final segment of local news. A startup chamber of commerce is a thing that I've been talking about for quite a while. The greater Vegas area is home to many chambers aligned by geography and culture for the most part. So there's an Asian chamber, there are other ethnic and cultural chambers, there's an urban chamber, and of course there's the Las Vegas chamber, and so on. Why not a horizontal business league that represents the interests of startups and entrepreneurs directly rather than taking membership money as a larger, so the Las Vegas chamber, for example, and I'm not saying you should not join, but their interests are very diverse. They're not focused on smaller startups. They're a membership organization, so they take membership money. They take their dues to fund their operations, and they're a strong advocacy organization, so they have attorneys and lobbyists and so on. That's the nature of the biz. So they may or may not have your best interests if you're a two-person startup. They'll take your membership dues, and then they may not serve your interests. So Startup Chamber multiplies the effort. It amplifies the voices of startups and can advocate for the things that the people at the roundtables begin to identify as places where we could do better. I've been talking about this for years, and the time is now. You can say, well, you've been talking about it for years. Well, it's really difficult for one person to accomplish anything in Vegas unless your last name is Wahlberg or Horowitz or Goodman. I should call them, see if they got some free time now. Actual connection to the cultivation of our innovation culture and our entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem, which includes engagement with our education resources and with activities adjacent, like mentorship programs, maker spaces, after-school activities, clubs, challenges, and the challengers that take them on. Elevate those young people who are leading the way into the future and listen for what isn't working. Surely there are entrepreneurs out there thinking about solutions rather than complaining about problems. Whenever I hear an entrepreneur saying somebody else should fix that, I always wonder where they're, but I'm too busy pursuing my own startup. Yeah, but you know how the world works. You know that solving problems doesn't mean waiting for someone else. Not always. General information awareness. So with the City of Las Vegas having worked closely with Code for Vegas, which is now the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, a decade ago on the establishment of an open data infrastructure, there is plenty of data and information to be had today, maintained officially in open data sets, and also in other places to be found with some creative searching. So not everything falls neatly under the open data infrastructure. Some of it might be. I got to look at some of the data sources for some of the dashboards I was just looking at earlier. A smart city has piles of data. A smarter city does something with it and encourages creative use of these data stores by others, by entrepreneurs and innovators. The data sets are many, and there are probably data sets that are not officially maintained in the open data sets. I'm just guessing. Taking a page from our Innovate for Vegas Foundation efforts, take an open source approach to initiative and component project development with a whole team approach that can capture opinions without attempting to limit participation to just the coders or just the wealthy real estate folks, for example. So if the city of Las Vegas does what they tend to do, and they're much more interested in what Mark Andreessen and Ben Horowitz have to say, or, oh, Mark is going to come here. Sorry, Mr. Wahlberg. Mark Wahlberg is going to come here and light the fuse on Hollywood 2.0. Hollywood 2.0 will be made or broken based on tax incentives. So there's going to be some lobbying of the state government to change tax incentives to favor media companies, right? Maybe Mark Wahlberg will be spearheading that again this year. Maybe he does. I think he just opened another restaurant. So we'll see. He's been very excited that his children are having a good time here in Vegas. That is what Vegas is for, having a good time. I'm pretty sure his children are not attending public school, but who knows? I could be wrong. We give a lot of attention to wealthy, shiny things. We should be listening to people making things happen, not to people who already made things happen and got rich. Those people don't always have your interests. They have their own growth and ongoing success. I hate to be mean. I'm just being honest. This is a lot of stuff, but if you go back and listen to that list again, it isn't a lot of fluff. All of these things that I've just mentioned here, and it's not the whole list, but it is not a partial list. It's pretty much enough for 1 year. They're not only a good fit for any entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem anywhere, but fit nicely into the notion that the greater Vegas area is to be a smart city and a hub of innovation. Wouldn't it be interesting if more of this innovation was going on here rather than appearing here at trade shows and conventions and whatnot? That's often where the hype goes. Most of the local innovation touted by the city, for example, revolves around infrastructure and autonomous vehicles that got their start a decade ago, with Nevada being on the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, drone test site list. It was an actual test site. I believe it was one of 6 test sites. So, hey, you can come to Nevada and you can test your drones. And that enabled us to bring self-driving vehicles to the roads sooner. There are self-driving delivery vehicles, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So by being an early adopter a decade ago and getting on that drone test site list, certainly Southern Nevada has been able to capitalize on this. And guess what? You are a place where some 40 million people are visiting. You have an opportunity to show some of these innovations directly to the people visiting. So we should be thinking more along the lines of what kinds of innovations can take place. You can certainly come here. And so Vegas will often, we're the center of the world of innovation. Let me see if I can find this quote. I was literally just looking at it, so of course I won't be able to find it. Economic development? Technology? Yeah, innovation happens here. I'm just going to read this and let you think about this. Las Vegas as a global center of innovation and technology. Las Vegas, and I'm reading, Las Vegas is an international stage for innovation and technology as the host city of 2 massive trade shows annually, Consumer Electronics Show and Specialty Equipment Marketing Association, SEMA, so CES and SEMA. Building on the strong tech foundation provided by Switch. Switch is an internet, it's a data center. It's a big building full of computer servers. So they're not a tech foundation. They don't really do development. A global technology solutions corporation that operates the world's only Tier 5 rated co-location facility at its core campus in Southern Nevada. They purchased Enron's resources, and Rob Roy has done a lot of cool things with it, but that's not a tech research center or anything like this. It's a co-hosting compute server center. The city of Las Vegas established in 2016 an innovation district, and you can, I'm not going to link to this today, but I will talk about this in the future. So an innovation district, which is mostly going to be recreated in Clark County because we need another one. The one we have is not making enough innovation, so we got to add another one. The take home is this. We have a talent pool here. It is what it is. We can try to grow it. We can try to cultivate the innovation culture so that people are more of the mindset of doing things that I didn't know I couldn't do that, right? That's how Silicon Valley got its start 100 years ago. 10 years ago, approximately, FAA test site for drones. Now, today, 10 years later, we have self-driving vehicles on the roads and whatnot. Not everything is being developed here. Sometimes the developments have taken place somewhere else, and then the company will move here. I think, was it Halo Cars here? I think there's another one. So, but the initial research and development is not necessarily happening here. That might start to change over time. There's been more of an academic focus on these things, but you don't just sprinkle money on top of a college campus and spring out a whole bunch of geniuses. Cafe Genius might be able to do that. Who knows? But seriously, these things take time, and you have to have the mindset and the focus to actually head in these directions. The culture of Vegas is built on the fun economy. It has been for a long time. Those things don't change overnight. They don't change just because someone posted on LinkedIn. They take time. As I've said before, 7th grade, age 12. Those students are the beginning of your future forward workforce. 10 years later, why does the number 10 in years keep coming up? What is it about a decade that makes such a difference? 10 years later, they're graduating from college. Maybe they're going to enter a master's program or a PhD program, or they'll go medical, they'll do research, and who knows? But 10 years later, they'll be 21, 22. They've had a chance to think like an entrepreneur. They've been able to take different types of classes. 7th grade, junior high school is usually where you end up breaking out into different levels of classwork, advanced math and so on. You're able to take extracurricular classes. You're taking elective classes in the curriculum and extracurricular outside the curriculum. You're able to focus more on robotics or software development or biotech, or maybe you want to do some rocketry. Who knows? Who knows what's possible? And the important thing is that you enable and encourage those things with a strong educational platform and extracurricular platform built on top of that. Where are we on that? Those are the sorts of things we got to take a hard look at, and that's what Innovation 2025 is about, among other things. And that is where I will leave today's episode. Have a happy new year. Stay safe out there. Hopefully this rough start we've all gotten off on will not be exacerbated in the coming weeks and months with what will no doubt be other forms of chaos on the globe and here in Vegas. Hopefully none of the above. Take it easy. Thanks for listening. Looking forward to a year of interestingness and hopefully some guests. Let's get some impresarios on here. You're probably tired of listening to what I have to say. Take it easy. Bye-bye.